to order. Let the record reflect, it's just a little bit after 1 o'clock. We've had a few little technical glitches that staff has been trying to resolve. And we do have a quorum present, correct, Clarissa?
Yeah.
Yes. Okay, now I would like to have a motion is to allow Commissioner Robinson, I see him up there, hello, to participate by Zoom. May I have a motion?
Make a motion, Madam Chair, to approve.
Thank you so much. Second?
Second?
Second, we have a motion and a second to approve Commissioner Robinson. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye, okay. Good. So let's hear from Mr. Burns. How nice to see you this afternoon. Thank you for being here.
Do you want to first approve the minutes?
Oh, I guess I do. Yes. May we please approve the minutes of June 2nd, 2021? Thank you, Brad, for keeping me straight.
Move approval of the June 2nd, 2021 minutes.
Thank you, Commissioner Driscoll.
Second.
Thank you, Commissioner Saraki. We have a motion and a second to approve the minutes of June 21st. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Aye. Thank you. Okay, now, Mr. Burns, would you like to present the state advocacy summary, the contract, summary of the contract? Thank you.
Excuse me, this is just Julie checking in to see when we're doing public comment. I don't have a copy of the script.
I already said that. What do you
I,
ask?
I think we're good, right?
Okay,
Yeah,
all right, thank you.
okay.
Good afternoon, Madam Chair. Al Burns, your highly motivated procurement director for PSTA. It's a pleasure. I don't get to come to the legislative committee, so it's a pleasure to be here before you this afternoon. This afternoon's action item is for state advocacy services, and the word lobbyist has been removed from my vocabulary per Brad and Debbie. So this is for state advocacy services. The action is recommend approval for a 3-year contract with 2 one-year options for state advocacy services with RSA Consulting for a total contract amount not to exceed $444,000, and authorize the CEO to exercise the 2 one-year options. Madam Chair, I'm just going to briefly go over the background. PSTA desires to engage a professional state government affairs firm to provide assistance with public transit needs. PSTA's interest on funding for PSTA specific projects or priorities, analyze state legislation, policy, and regulations affecting PSTA. And then there's a bulleted list of the services that we're looking for. In regard to procurement, in June 23rd, we released an RFP. It was in accordance with all of our policies and procedures. We posted that on DemandStar and on the PSTA website. On July 20th, we received 2 proposals. We received one from Gray Robinson and the other one from the incumbent RSA Consulting. On the 30th of July, we met and the evaluation committee met for the solicitation. In the bottom in the packet, you'll see that RSA Consulting was ranked highest with 90.5 points out of 100, and Gray Robinson at 81.56 out of 100. We did a responsibility check on RSA Consulting, even though they are the incumbent. We checked to make sure that they're certified to do business in the state of Florida. They're not debarred or suspended or have anything negative about the firm. I would also like to mention that RSA Consulting is a small business. And that's, as your DBLO, Madam Chair, I thought that would be a great point of interest. The fiscal impact of this is the action item has been budgeted as part of the approved FY21 budget. Finally, Madam Chair, the recommendation again is recommend approval of a 3-year contract with 2 one-year options for state advocacy services with RSA Consulting for a total contract amount not to exceed $444,000 and authorize the CEO to exercise the 2 one-year options. If there's any questions, Madam Chair, myself or the CEO would be happy to answer. Thank you.
Thank you. Are there any questions from our committee members? Commissioner Driscoll.
Thank you, Madam Chair, and thank you for that, the summary of this. This is a great opportunity for us to continue a great relationship with RSA. They have done a tremendous job serving our needs, and I'm fully supportive of continuing to work with them. Thank you.
Thank you. Yes?
Madam Chair, thank you. I just want to mention, Jamie Robinson and I went up to Tallahassee this year with the COVID, and Ron opened his door at his office, and he let us, he gave a great presentation. I think Jamie Robinson was very impressed with the organization, and I totally approve this. I think he's done great things for the PSTA, and I look forward to seeing you again in Tallahassee.
Commissioner Robinson, do you have any comments or questions?
No, ma'am. Thank you, though.
I'm sure, Mr. Pierce, it will not surprise you that I have a few.
I'd be disappointed otherwise, Madam Chair.
So, because I don't have the contract in front of me, could you please tell the committee how many subcontractors you plan on employing in this contract?
Yes, ma'am. We have 2. One is with Susky Consulting. Alan and his team will still be a part of the contract, and we've also got one with Conversa, which is a PR team that we have under contract for many of our different clients that we serve, in case there's any PR or communications needs that may arise as a part of our work with PSTA.
Thank you. And would it be out of the realm of possibility to have an expectation that at least once or twice a year we could see their shiny little faces on Zoom and/or in our meetings?
Yes, ma'am. We can make that happen.
Thank you. And lastly, I do want to commend you for the way in which you have made yourself available for questions and concerns and strategies throughout the year. I think that was one of the things I feared most when we first contracted with you, because I always have a sense of urgency about almost everything that I do or we do or PSTA does, because I recognize clearly how long it takes to get anything done in the world of transportation and transportation funding. So I'm very grateful for the response that you have provided to us and for your willingness to be so easily available whenever the whim or the light bulb goes on. So thank you for that.
Our pleasure, Madam Chair.
Yeah, good afternoon, everybody, and thank you, Ron. To what Commissioner Long was discussing, I want to just kind of take us back or express my gratitude. Starting off, Commissioner Long, after our last contract, really kind of taught me some things about the relationships with government affairs group. And so the RFP that we previously had some of her fingerprints all over it in terms of placing some measurements and performance requirements in that agreement. That was great. And then awesome, thanks to you, Commissioner Sharaki and Driscoll, for over the last year or so asking some good questions at our legislative committee, so that then for this RFP, I sort of took what we had before and I added some specific requirements. The biggest one I think is that I put in there was that at the end of the legislative session each year, now the consultant is responsible for kind of coming to the PSTA board and to this committee and saying, okay, here's the legislative agenda that you all approved back in the fall. This is how we did on your agenda, not just the sort of standard lobby tools. This is what the legislature did to us, but this is how we actually performed on your priorities as a formal presentation. So that would be one of the times that you were just asking where Ron and his consultants would come and see how they did, how they performed. And I want to thank Ron and his team for really responding to that in your proposal, in your written proposal, that you saw that we had sort of added these requirements to the new agreement, and your proposal really nicely reflected that. So thank you. I'm very much looking forward to continuing our strong relationship.
So I have one more comment to make, if I might. My first experience with Brad going to Tallahassee was pretty eye-opening about when you retain a lobbying firm, if you're not familiar with that world, what you don't know can really, really hurt you. And if you haven't been in Tallahassee a lot, and for those of you that haven't, I apologize I wasn't able to accompany you this past year. It's a very daunting place to move around in, and no matter how well you think you know it, like the back of your hand, every time the administrative arm of the legislature changes, they move the walls and they change the hallways. And so, to me, it has been enormously beneficial working with RSA, that when we do go to town to visit with them, I hate to use the word hold our hands, but they really do stay with us and guide us and help us get to places on time, which can be a remarkable feat all on its own. And don't even get me going about what that's like in DC.
Yeah.
So thank you again for all of that. I'm very grateful. And without further ado, are we ready to proceed with a motion?
Yep. Madam Chair, I'd like to make a motion to recommend approval of the 3-year contract with a 2 one-year option for state advocacy services with RSA Consulting.
Thank you. And do we have a second?
Second.
Okay, thank you very much. And before we go any further, let's open it for discussion. Commissioner Robinson, you're ready to vote as well?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. So I am assuming that, Clarissa, that there's nobody in the lobby that wants to come in and chat? Okay, better safe than sorry before Julie screams at us.
There's nobody there? Okay, good.
Julie, anybody online?
Nobody's online to speak. Thank you.
Okay, then
Sorry about that.
all in favor, please, of retaining RSA Consultant, please say yay.
Yay.
Yay. Okay, Ron, go forth and good luck. We're going for a ride again.
Thank you, everybody. We truly appreciate the opportunity so much.
You're welcome. You've earned it. Okay, now on to another one of my favorite peoples, and I did say peoples with an S, Steve. Harry Glenn and Steve Palmer for our federal report. Welcome.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Good to be with you again. I guess, Brad, we were going to give a quick update. I guess there's so much going on with the infrastructure bill. I don't think we've talked to the legislative committee since the Senate has passed the infrastructure bill, so I thought it might be helpful to sort of give you a status on that. And we also have talked to you, Brad, and Cassandra about some of the funding opportunities that will make their way down the road eventually when and if this bill becomes law. So we could talk about those. But I was going to pass over to Steve first. He's been closely tracking the infrastructure bill, and I'll let him lead off, and then I'll take it after that, if that's okay with you, Madam Chair.
Absolutely.
Okay.
Go
Thank
for
you.
it.
Thank you, Madam Chair. It has been somewhat remarkable that the United States Senate has been able to pass a bipartisan bill that is more than $1 trillion this year. We know that there's more coming. We can talk about that probably in the future, and I'll allude to it probably. We will both allude to it before we're done, the next bill. But the infrastructure bill is a substantial funding increase for transit, and I think it's going to be a real success story for PSTA. Not only is the formula funding going to increase by about 23%, but the money available for future BRT projects, the bus formula, bus competitive, and low-no competitive grants are all going to significantly increase. And let me just highlight low-no emission competitive grant programs. They're going to go from $55 million a year to $1.1 billion for the next 5 years. So there's going to be a huge amount of money that's going to be available for low and no emission grant programs. Harry's putting on the screen a slide we put together, should be updated, but it shows the numbers that are available, that are going to be available starting in the next fiscal year if this bill is enacted. And we have to emphasize if, because while typically the House Speaker of the House is able to command a majority, with a three-seat margin in the House, Speaker Pelosi, there's no guarantee that she can marshal her troops to get this done, because I'll just say very quickly, the moderates in the House are saying, we want to vote on this bill first, this infrastructure bill, and the progressives are saying, no, we want to vote on the $3.5 trillion human infrastructure bill that we haven't seen yet nor talked about. So there's a little bit of a standoff in the House how this will get done, but I feel fairly confident that it will be done. And ultimately, these are the funding levels, annual funding levels that I think we can look forward to seeing in that middle column if this bill gets enacted into law. So huge opportunities that are going to be coming down the pike for PSTA. Now, we know the dynamics about this bill. We know that it almost didn't happen. We know that in the end there were 69 votes for the bill. So we're going to see what happens in the next several weeks. The House is likely not expected to vote on this bill until maybe October, but that all could change. So we have a little bit of time to digest what it all means. Harry, I'll turn it back to you then.
So Harry, before you start, could one of you please forward that page to us so that we can actually see it? Maybe it's my glasses.
Oh, yes.
I don't know, but I couldn't really read it. Yeah, it was very teeny.
Oh, sorry.
Yeah.
Harry, I'll do it real quick.
No worries. Harry?
And we have a more ddetailed summary too. We'll send you that too, kind of a read ahead. It talks about some of the new grant programs that are created in here, some of which may be of interest to PSTA and some may not be, but we'll send it just so you can kind of get a glimpse of that. And what I would say, and maybe Steve can correct me, I guess there's still some, it's still not exactly clear how this is all going to play out. If the bill becomes law, how this bill and the annual appropriations bills match up, right, Steve? I mean, there's an issue of, the Appropriations Committee provides money every year for a variety of these programs, like the RAISE grant program. They provide some low-no funding, some others. And then there's additional money that's in this infrastructure bill goes on top of that. Correct, Steve?
Yes.
So that's why there's so many, not only are there some new programs created, but the funding levels will be substantially higher over the next 5 years than they would ordinarily. And so there'll be some great opportunities here for PSTA to compete for electric bus funding, bus and bus facility grants, the RAISE grant program. I know Cassandra's looking at the ferry boat program. They create a new ferry boat program in this bill focused on electric ferries, which is something that's different. And there's some other programs. There's a SMART grant program that looks at using smart technology to deliver transportation alternatives. And so there will be some opportunities. I think, Steve, there's additional money in here for research and development within the Department of Transportation and FTA. You all and the staff have done a great job of competing for that. So great opportunities there. So to Steve's point about everybody's asking, well, what's the status of the infrastructure bill? As you know, the Senate passed it last week. It's now in the hands of the House. And I think the issue that Steve was referring to is there are some members of the House, Democrats, who want to vote on the bill next week when the House returns for a special week-long session. But the Speaker has pledged to hold the bill until later in September when she can pair it up and have votes on both this bill and the larger people infrastructure bill that the president's proposed and that the Senate has started that process on. That's going to take a little more time because it's a $3.5 trillion bill. In the House and the Senate, a variety of committees have to get together and come up with a proposal that they can all agree on for that. And that's going to take several weeks. So we don't know until next week whether the House will vote on the infrastructure bill and send it on down to the president, or whether it'll have to wait until September. That's kind of one of the dynamics will play out this week. So in addition to that, Madam Chair, the House, I think, since we've talked to you last, has completed action on 9 of its 12 regular annual appropriations bills, including the bill that funds transportation programs and the FTA. And there were some good funding levels in there. I think we've talked to you about those before. The Senate has not taken any action on that yet. They probably won't get to that till mid to late September, if then, maybe even October. And we don't expect to see all of those bills wrapped up until the end of the calendar year, end of December, Christmas time at the earliest. And so we do have projects in the Transportation Appropriations Bill for PSTA. And then we also have, that's the electric charging infrastructure for St. Petersburg and Clearwater. And then going back to Steve's bill, the infrastructure bill, you'll recall that there's an earmark in there that Congressman Chris did for the solar panel project at PSTA headquarters to provide additional charging capacity. The appropriations earmark for the charging infrastructure is in good shape. There was a comment over the weekend by the chairman of the Senate Appropriations Committee that his opinion is if your project showed up in the House side or the Senate side, it'll be included in the final bill. There didn't seem to be any concern about that. Our biggest concern right now, and Steve can maybe talk to this, is we don't know what's going to happen with the earmarked projects, including the solar project that was in the House-passed infrastructure highway bill, because the Senate did not do any earmarks in their version of the bill. And so the version of the bill that's sitting before the House now doesn't have earmarks, doesn't have the House earmarks, and we don't know how the House is going to dispose of that, if they're going to try and insert their projects in or pass the bill without the earmarks. And so that solar project is somewhat at risk right now until we learn a little bit more on it. Steve, do you want to comment on that?
Yeah, I just, for clarity's sake, the normal legislative process is the Senate passes a bill, the House passes a different bill, they go to conference and reconcile the differences. Well, the House passed the Invest in America Act in May, I believe, and the Senate now has passed the IIJA, Investment in Infrastructure and Jobs Act. They will not go to conference, though. The House has capitulated on this. They will not, they will in all likelihood just pass the Senate bill as it is. And as Harry said, they don't know how they're going to handle the projects that are in the House bill. They will not, as of today, be added to the Senate bill. So they're going to have to explore other avenues to try to attach those earmarks to another must-pass bill. But as of today, unfortunately, that earmark for PSTA is at risk as a result of that.
Okay.
So that's, Madam Chair, that's sort of the status of what's going on. As we mentioned, the House and Senate are in recess this week. The House is being called back next week to consider the budget reconciliation and potentially the infrastructure bill next week. And then they'll go back on recess until mid-September. So.
Okay. Any questions from the committee? Commissioner Driscoll.
Thank you. Is it possible to put that slide back up that had the list of everything? There was something on there called, and sorry, I'm just, with the whole list, it's, I'm trying to learn how to separate out which items mean which projects or which elements. So I was wondering, like, what's the difference between bus formula and then I think it was section 5307 formula?
So the Commissioner, section 5307 formula is the Urbanized Formula Grant Program. That is, the normal formula program that's based on the miles that the buses operate, the population. It's a formula that is passed by Congress. And then there is within a separate pot of money there is a bus formula, there's a bus program, grant program that's divided into three parts. One is for a formula that every transit agency then gets a small part of that money, which is now $464 million. And then there is money for the bus and bus facility program. That's a competitive grant program. That's the second pot of money. And then the third pot of money is the low and no emission grant program, competitive grant program. So the differences between 5307 and bus formula are just different pots of money. 5307 money tends to go to the largest systems, and they are trying to make sure there's a bus formula program that goes to bus only systems as well.
Okay,
But the key difference there is the formula has a B, it's in billions. The other ones that have an M, which is millions.
Correct.
Which across the
Correct.
country means we get most of our money from the 5307 formula.
right. Yeah, it was more of those last three, the bus formula, and then the next two that I wasn't sure about.
We
So
get a
those are-
little tiny, I think it's like 1.5 or 1.7 million, so that'll go up a tiny bit, from the one that says bus formula. And then the bottom two are competitive. And we apply for those each year, and it's like blackjack, whether we get it or not.
Yeah, but with that amount going up so
We have a better chance, hopefully.
significantly, that really caught my eye.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
This is great. Thank you. That's all I had, Madam Chair. Thank you.
Thank you. Hey, Harry, just one other thing I just wanted to alert the committee. We're trying to plan have a very successful RAISE grant application for the Clearwater Transit Center. So on the 18th of September, we have a planned visit, hopefully with Congressman Charlie Crist in attendance. If we have the mayor and some other folks also signed up to attend.
What was the date?
September 18th?
I believe it's the 16th.
Oh,
16th, Brad.
Is it the 16th? Okay, September 16th, I'm sorry, at,
I already signed up for that.
I think you did, yeah,
I'm attending.
9:30 is what I got on my calendar. Kind of, that'll be the official sort of, where the city donates the land to PSTA for hopefully where we'll build the transit center. And we'll have an event, and the goal of that is to get some positive press that we can forward up to Secretary Pete Buttigieg and other fine people up there, and they'd be like, oh, wow, everybody down there in Clearwater and Florida loves this project. Yeah.
So, Brad, just for kicks and giggles, my calendar says it's at 10 o'clock, 10 to 11. I thought you said it was at 9:30.
I don't, I would imagine it probably is at 10 o'clock. Oh, maybe it's just for traveling there, yeah. Do we have a little thing here? Maybe I don't see it.
Okay,
Madam Chair, I have one comment.
yes.
Steve, if you email that report that we're just talking about, I'd be very, I have my microphone, okay, there it goes. I'd be very thankful. And then, in weeks or months to come, at our next legislative
10 o'clock.
next meeting, I would really like you to give us an update of what was approved, what was not approved, because I think that's a great tool for us, especially for me, to learn about, what kind of grants we are achieving. So thank you very much for that. That's all I have, Madam Chair.
You're welcome. Gina, anything?
No, I think I've asked all of mine. Thank you.
Okay, Jamie? You have any comments?
No, ma'am, I have nothing to add. Thank you.
All right, thank you. Anything else, Brad?
Just to confirm, yeah, the event is at 10 o'clock on the 16th.
All right,
Planned.
okay.
Great job.
Thank you, everybody. Thank you so much for participating. You're doing a great job for us, and we're very grateful. Okay, on to the next subject matter, which would be our very own Cassandra to talk about Forward Pinellas and finding common ground.
Excuse me, Madam Chair.
Yes,
I think maybe earlier we had skipped the actual state legislative update from
what?
Ron. Did we already have our state legislative update from Ron Pierce? I know we talked about the contract.
Oh, yeah.
Well, that's a
but
good point, thank you. Ron, shame on you.
I know he's just so, he's politely hanging out.
I was going to pipe up at the very end. Thank you, Madam Chair, members. I'll be pretty brief. I know you have a couple other issues you want to talk about at today's meeting. Madam Chair, Nina and I talked about it earlier. Brad and I have not talked about it yet. Our update for today basically is we need to start working on our agenda for next year. Committee weeks start the week of September the 20th. The week of September the 20th is more presentations. We don't expect a lot to happen at that meeting. What I would love to try to be able to do is between now and our next meeting, sit down with Brad and his team to come up with what a draft agenda may look like, then come back and present the draft agenda for your review and approval at your September legislative meeting, and then have the full board approve it at your September meeting. In addition to that, at your next meeting, I'd also like to go ahead and try to get a couple of our Tallahassee trip dates on the calendar. And that way you all have them in advance. We can get them on our master calendar and have them on your calendar as well. Probably follow the same path we've done the last couple of years, which is do one trip during committee weeks and do one trip during session as well. So if that works for everybody, Brad, I'm not sure if you have anything to add, but I think we've got some time, not a lot of time, but if we can meet between now and our next meeting to come up with the draft agenda, we can present it to the full board at the September meeting.
That sounds like a plan, yeah. So we'll try to get together so that we can present it at the September Legislative Committee, our first drafted agenda, a policy agenda for the upcoming session.
And speaking of those issues, where did Harry go? I see Steve's still there. Steve, oh, there's Harry. Hi, Harry. Do we have any plans, or do you know of any plans when we might be thinking about doing a DC event?
Well, Steve and I are in separate places, so I'll give you my opinion and he can give his opinion. I think conventional thinking was before the numbers started to go the wrong way on the Delta virus, that Congress was going to start to, and the federal agencies would start to resume some more normal operations after Labor Day. But with what's going on with the COVID, it seems that I think federal agencies are delaying their return now to the office. We're working with some other folks to try and schedule some meetings in September. And right now, most federal agencies, and I think DOT included, Steve, are not taking in-person meetings yet. The Capitol was kind of starting to reopen for meetings, not quite as free-flowing as they were before. You have to be escorted from security entrance to the meeting and back to the security entrance, so you just can't wander through the Capitol complex like you used to. Even those, I think, are being curtailed right now. So I think it's just going to be a while until we figure out when things resume to normal. But I don't personally foresee it happening before the fall, October, maybe even November. I don't know, Steve, what your take is on that?
No, I can't add anything more than that. I think that pretty well covers it. I'm suspicious that, particularly because members in the House still can do proxy voting. We all thought that by Labor Day, when they all came back from their August break, we'd have better clarity, but I don't think we're going to for a while. I think we're probably going to be muddling through still.
That said, Madam Chair, I think, I know the Hill, Capitol Hill is very well schooled now on virtual meetings, and we've had good success with virtual meetings and virtual fly-ins, and the agencies have been doing fine on the virtual meetings too. So, and I know we've talked to Brad about setting up some calls about the RAISE grant application in September, late September, early October, when the decision-making time is getting nearer. And so we're going to do some of those, I think, virtually. So I think, if we decide there's a need to do virtual or congressional and agency meetings, I think right now we can plan to do them virtually. And if things reopen, we could, decide to switch to in-person meetings.
Thank you. Okay, now are we ready to do the Forward Pinellas piece, Cassandra?
Yes, we are ready. Good afternoon, committee members. I'm so glad Ron got to go first because this sort of sets me up very nicely for a discussion about some policy issues that we can look at for this upcoming session. Last week on Wednesday, there was a meeting held by Forward Pinellas that invited state legislators to a conversation about a number of topics that are related to the work of Forward Pinellas, and understand that Forward Pinellas is more than just the MPO. It does have land use authority, and does think comprehensively about how our community is building. So they had 4 general topic areas that they discussed with the state legislators. Just to, as a side note, board members Jamie Robinson and David Albritton were in attendance for that event, and so we'll maybe have some comments from Commissioner Robinson at the end of my presentation. There were 4 general areas that they discussed. One was Safe Streets Pinellas, so looking at the Vision Zero concept of no traffic deaths, including very much focused on pedestrian and cyclists. There was a very robust discussion about housing and jobs and related to transportation, and that's about connecting the communities and, again, thinking comprehensively. The third one was about community resiliency, so environmental protection and changing the tide of where we are, making sure that we have a future that is resilient. And the one that was most interesting to me was about flexible funding for transportation and investing in transportation. And it seemed that the state legislators at the table were very interested in the possibility of changing some of the policies under the Florida Department of Transportation and the things that we've been talking to staff about for quite some time, about opening up opportunities for funding that is dedicated to roadways, and especially in Pinellas County, where we really have very limited opportunity to expand capacity for roadways, is shifting that funding to allow us to determine where we should invest, and allowing us to look at things like public transportation as a place to take the funding that should be coming to Pinellas County, shifting that from arterial roadways to public transportation and other forms of alternative transportation. I think that some of you have already heard Whit Blanton talk about the fact that if we do not have these policy changes, that Pinellas County will be returning money to the state legislature through the Florida Department of Transportation because we just can't use it based on the existing policies. We were very encouraged by comments from Representative Diamond and Senator Brandis about their willingness to talk about these policies and the flexibility that needs to be put into them. And so that is the event in a nutshell. It was very much the first of its kind. One thing that I would say about the topics is it was clear to me that the group is thinking of transportation and solving transportation issues is that the transportation is the problem as opposed to transportation is the solution. And I think that is something that I think this committee could really have a discussion and influence on in making sure that we as PSTA are positioned as the solution to many of the visions and problems that Pinellas County is having. And with that, at your discretion, Madam Chair, if Commissioner Robinson has additional comments to make since he was at the meeting, if you are all right with that, I will defer to him.
That's fine. Jamie?
Yes, ma'am. Thank you. I just, first of all, want to say thank you to Cassandra for being there and I think opening the eyes of some of our legislators to some of the problems that we're seeing, when it comes to those funding solutions. So I really do appreciate her being there. Yeah, I mean, she recapped it very well. I think that the conversation is in its infancy. We're going to continue to have these conversations. I could tell that just it's not on their radar right now. So, as we continue to have these conversations, like Cassandra said, Rep. Diamond and Senator Brandis are very willing to continue to have these conversations. So we just need to, kind of keep our foot on the throttle and have the conversations with them. So, Cassandra did a great job. I was a little frustrated by some of the lack of conversation from some of the other representatives that were there, but that's probably not for, Cassandra doesn't need to speak about that. I'll go ahead and throw myself on that one. But other than that, it was a good conversation. Yeah, we'll continue to do it and hopefully open some eyes and keep on having it.
Okay. Is that it, Cassandra?
Yes, ma'am. I have nothing further.
Thank you.
There's a little handout at your spot. This was handed out at the briefing with the legislators.
It's nice.
Any comments or questions from the committee?
Great job. Thank you for the update.
Okay, do we have any other business, Fred?
Nothing from me, no.
No? Well then, for the good of the order, I guess we are adjourned. Very good.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, everybody.
Thanks,
you.
everybody. Have a good week.
Bye-bye.
So Brad, the
Good job.
September 1st meeting, can I do that? I have to do it by Zoom. I'm not going to be in town. Our next
Yeah.
meeting,
That's our next meeting?
I'm going to be
Oh,
in
yeah.
Honolulu.
Ooh.
And
for
you're
you.
still gonna log in?
Yeah. Why not?
No, you're not. It's gonna be
Hey,
like 4
remember
o'clock in
the
the
time
morning.
frame.
Well,
It's gonna
actually,
it's gonna be early, right?
actually, I'm flying out that day, so in the morning I'm free. And this is, yeah, you're right, it's going to be what, like 5 o'clock?
Yeah.
It'll be,
Big
That's
time
I won't
difference.
play it by ear. I'll
No, maybe not so much. Oh,
There you
that's
go.
awesome. Well, good for you though. I
Well, we were
mean,
gonna go last year, we didn't go because of COVID.
yeah.
So the opportunity came up and we're like, all right, it's our anniversary, we're going.